Hello everybody and welcome to the very first episode of Kato's Anime Cafe, where every Monday we sit down and discuss anything and everything anime. I'm your host Hoodie Song, as always joined by my partner in crime, Zero. Today's episode is brought to you by the Tax Defense Group. Due to the global pandemic, the deadline to file your taxes for 2019 was pushed back to July 15th, 2020. If you haven't filed for 2019 yet, there's good news. The Tax Defense Group can e-file your taxes for you. The process is quick, and for millions of people, you will get money back. So, what are you waiting for? Call the Tax Defense Group today at 800-850-7973 to get started. That number again is 800-850-7973, and you can visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Writer Junkie. Are you thinking about starting a business or a side hustle? For all businesses to be successful, you need a website. Writer Junkie offers website development, content writing, and SEO services for business websites. Call Writer Junkie today at 805-587-7966, and you can visit them online at writerjunkie.com. Again, the number is 805-587-7966, or visit them online at writerjunkie.com. Thank you to the Tax Defense Group and Writer Junkie for sponsoring this week's episode. Let's get back into it. Zero, I want to open up this podcast talking about some weekly discussion threads. So every week on the Anime Cafe, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most popular threads on Reddit's r/anime and giving our hot takes on the conversation. Zero, why don't you open up one of them posts and read it for us, huh?
Sure thing, buddy. Our first post: which popular anime do you think will stand the test of time, i.e. still relevant in early 2030, and which will not? I mean, 2030 is actually kind of short-sighted.
Yeah, because I was thinking the answers that I would give 10 years ago aren't, like, I don't feel like 10 years gives us that crazy of a time span. So I guess I'm just projecting in my head more like 50 years from now. Maybe that's too long?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
I was thinking in the lines of that sort of time frame, because really it was pretty obvious like what anime in 2010 would make it to 2020.
Yeah.
I feel like you could predict that pretty accurately.
This post is by 25 November, and they said very popular now and will continue to be popular is Attack on Titan, Monogatari, I always struggle to pronounce that, Steins Gate, Psychopath Season 1, Fate, the entire franchise, I guess, Haikyuu, etc. Very popular now, but not in the future, is Demon Slayer, Seven Deadly Sins, Bunny Girl Senpai, Future Diary, and maybe My Hero Academia if this craze of superhero movies subsides. And then he also says, not very popular now, but will still be relevant in the future, is Hoseki no Kuni, Dora Hedoro, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, Log Horizon, Bakano, Black Lagoon, Shinsekai Yori, etc. I feel like you cannot put etc. when you're giving a list for this question, because it actually isn't anything.
Yeah. This is a very specific list.
What do you think about some of their... well, the interesting one to me is very popular now, but not in the future. This person, 25 November, says Demon Slayer. A couple of these I agree on, like Bunny Girl Senpai, even in... It's only been like, half a year since that came out, and I don't hear about it at all anymore. Future Diary, I don't hear at all about. My Hero Academia seems to hold its place really well, but Demon Slayer, I mean, that's the One Piece killer right now. That's the only thing outselling the Titan that is the remaining big three in One Piece.
That is the sad reality, and this person seems to have the naive optimism to think that bad material won't be remembered.
Yeah, like I'm not even a huge fan of Demon Slayer. Like I think it's all right, but like you cannot deny that. We were in a call the other day, or maybe a couple weeks ago, and I asked you, guess how much more Demon Slayer sold than One Piece, and you were off by like 15 million or something. Like it's a huge variant between, and there's a lot of variables there for like why that particular volume period was not great for One Piece or why it was particularly great for Demon Slayer. I don't know all the details. I just know like that seemed like a huge feat where something was not only outselling One Piece, which I'm sure happens from time to time, but doing so in such a monumental manner.
Definitely. I don't get it. Not to shit on Demon Slayer, because it's functional, it's serviceable, it's solid battle shonen that you can watch. But how did it get so popular?
I have no idea, because I wouldn't even really say like I mean, I'm not like the biggest shonen head, right? Like I haven't seen every shonen ever, but it doesn't like stick out to me as any better than any random generic shonen I've seen. Like I will say the first episode got me, but it didn't get me in like a way that I was like, this is the best thing I've ever, watched. In a way that like honestly One Piece did, well, not the first episode of One Piece, but the first chapter of One Piece really did get me in that exact manner. So I don't really know what the appeal of Demon Slayer is beyond just like a surface level, this is a pretty decent shonen.
I'm sure the phenomenal anime gave it a meteoric rise, but the manga itself must have been popular before that, and I just didn't notice. I'm guessing it's because of the swords. I think Battle Shonen has been seriously lacking in swords, so that's probably why Demon Slayer got so popular.
You would think it wouldn't be, though. You would think swords would be aplenty, but I guess not. Very popular now and will continue to be popular. One of them that I want to point out, a lot of these sound fine to me. Like Attack on Titan, I could see lasting. Steins Gate, obviously, I think it's going to be fine. Psycho Pass, I haven't seen it talked about too much recently, but it is a very beloved show. I don't think that's super at risk of... I don't know if it will continue to be popular, but I think it will continue to be talked about to some degree or another. Fate, I don't see that going anywhere. Haikyuu does seem a question mark to me, and I feel like if it is popular... And let me, set the record here. I love Haikyuu. I have one tattoo on my body, and it is from Haikyuu. So I do very much love this show. But I don't know if this is the type of show that's going to be lasting really long time. And the only way that I could see it is if the anime adaptation takes a long time to finish, because we did go like 3 years between season 3 and season 4.
I was actually going to bring
so
that
if you
point
keep up that rate, then maybe if it's just the anime is taking so long to finish, then yeah, in a couple of decades it would still be relevant. But let's say Haikyuu ended tomorrow, I don't really know if people would still be talking about it 20 years from now.
That is a good point about how the duration of the series affects, how long it will remain relevant, because Dragon Ball has been continuing in a fashion since, the early 90s, and even after Z sort of ended, there are still lots of people like me who found out about the series through the Budokai Tenkaichi games and sort of got invested in it. And then it came back again with Super. So Dragon Ball is one of those shows that, like, this person, when it was coming out, probably wouldn't have said it's going to remain popular. But, here we are in 2020, and Dragon Ball Super is still a cultural phenomenon. So.
Yeah, and I would even... I don't have any numbers to back this up, so this is purely anecdotal, but you could even go to an example of the big three. Obviously, Naruto is still lasting. One Piece is still lasting because it's on. Boruto is still on. Dragon Ball, not a big three, but a predecessor of that, is still on. But Bleach, a titan of this industry at one point, are people still talking about Bleach? I'm sure certain circles are, right? It is, people do like the show to some degree or another, but it hasn't been on the air for a long time. The manga is done, so is anyone actually still talking about this on a large scale? Not that I see.
It's definitely fallen into the background, but I don't think Bleach is probably going to be forgotten easily because of its, membership as one of the big three, which people have been trying to assign to a new triumvirate of Battle Shonen, but, the big three refers to specifically One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. So... anime historians are always probably going to remember Bleach.
Yeah, I guess you would say that Bleach sort of lives by the nature of the discussion around Big Three. So as long as people are trying to continue, saying this is the new Big Three, as long as that conversation is happening, people always refer back to Bleach like, no, this is one of the original. So I think that does probably boost its longevity to some degree. But that does sort of feel like an asterisk on its legacy. It's like we're not even really talking about the show anymore. We're just talking about the surrounding context of the show that just so happened to exist during.
That's how it be sometimes.
For classic anime that I actually only have two. One that I don't know if I would count just because it feels like it's kind of a cheating answer, but JoJo still coming out to this day, probably still stay a classic because I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Of course, I don't read the manga too far ahead. I'm only at part 4, so I don't know, maybe there is an end in sight, but as far as I know, it's not going to. So in 30 years from now, we'll probably be on we're on JoJo part 8 right now, so we'll be on JoJo part 10 because this guy takes a long time sometimes.
I have 3 anime that I am pretty sure will stand this test of time. All Shonen Jump because I am a shonen boy. Probably number one, Naruto, because of similar reasons to the Bleach, but also because it is, a pretty good shonen. It's above average. I think it's a solid 7 out of 10.
I was literally just watching Naruto earlier today because my aunt is going through it for the first time. I don't know why, but she is on. We were watching the Jiraiya fight, Jiraiya versus Pain rather, earlier today, and I will say that that holds up. I mean, I will say it's spotty with its quality. Like I think we could all agree on this, is that because it is the nature of this production where it was coming out year round. They obviously had a lot of moments where, man, this show fucking looks terrible. But, we got to Jiraiya versus Pain, and goddamn, that looks good, so...
Yeah, there are many, solid fights in Naruto before the war arc that are just really, really good.
Even some post-war arc. I mean, there's some, that... Listen, the story may go off the rails, but it still looks pretty...
Kakashi
that last
versus
Naruto
Obito.
versus Sasuke fight is a fucking banger,
Yeah, but it's not one of the better ones, in my opinion. And I will say Kakashi versus Obito is very solid. Obviously, Madara has some good fights, but for the most part, it gets a little bit too Dragon Ball Z for my taste.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not what I'm looking for in Naruto.
What's your next on the list?
Number 2 is Death Note. I think Death Note is one of those shows that will be... like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, it'll just survive from good reputation and quality content alone. And
yeah, I guess I would agree, but maybe there's just a difference in how we interpret the question. Naruto, I guess, counts more than Death Note as a valid answer to me because Naruto only ended a couple years ago. But Death Note to me is that's kind of like a cheating answer. Yeah, it's already proven it's gonna last. So saying it's gonna last is like, okay, well, fuck you. Yeah, of course. I guess technically JoJo is maybe a cheating answer according to that too, but JoJo's still ongoing, so I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna
with it, and I don't
demerit your grade here,
asshole.
but you want to give us your third answer, or you have more to say about Death Note?
I'll just move on to the third.
Okay.
Which is Code Geass. You had to know it was coming. Code Geass will stand the test of time because 50, 70 years from now, I'll still be yelling at everyone about how good it is.
You will single-handedly be parading the flag of Code Geass because, listen, I hate to break the nose to you, but I don't even know if this is still popular right now. I mean, I don't know if this... I think it's already failed. I'm sorry.
No. People love this show, and so do I.
Let me just check the views on our last Code Geass video and see if that actually stands true or not. I will say, it's not unpopular. It's still talked about. I don't know if I'd say it's gonna be popular in the future, but it might be referenced in a spare conversation here and there.
I guess it is kind of about how we interpret the question, because I'm not positing these as shows that will probably, be constantly or have some big resurgence in the future. Just shows that reputation-wise will survive in discussions about anime multiple decades down the line.
Well, I guess I will set an alarm in my phone for 30 years from now, and we will revisit this on our 4,000th episode of this podcast and see whether or not you were right.
That sounds good to me.
I do have one more answer, and there's a huge asterisk on this one, which is if The Promised Neverland stays good and gets a faithful adaptation that, or maybe not faithful, just if the adaptation is good, I cannot see a world where this anime does not become a fucking classic. Because I have shown The Promised Neverland to so many people. I've seen the series, I've not read the manga, but I've seen this first season of the anime like almost 10 times at this point, because it's one of my go-to anime where it's like, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a casual anime fan, you're deep in anime, you've never seen an anime before, you think anime is for kids, anyone I've shown The Promised Neverland to is blown away. They're in love with it. They're crying by the end of Isabella's song. Like, this anime is so fucking good. So if the manga, like I said, I've never read the manga. If the manga stays good, if the anime keeps with the quality it had in season 1, I cannot see a world where we forget about The Promised Neverland.
I have read the manga. I've been reading it and continue to, even though it's seemingly ending, but it's still going for now. I can say my opinion is that there hasn't been much of a wane in quality. There are people who are like, saying or creating a tier list for each arc, as people do for every series. But in my opinion, it's all been pretty high quality writing. It's all been consistently good. So, as long as the anime, treats it right, then again, even if it doesn't, it will probably still end up being a classic.
You have started Tower of God, correct? You have not finished it, though? Well, the last episode is yet to come out as of the recording of today, but how far in are you?
I'm on, episode 4.
Okay, so you got a bit of a taste. Has anything you've seen thus far convinced you that this is going to be a show that lasts even a year from now? I think it's particularly relevant right now because of the circumstances of its creation, which is that it is a webtoon. It is one of the first webtoon to get a major animated release. It is a Crunchyroll original, which seems to be a big deal as they move forward into producing more anime. So there's a lot behind it that makes it relevant right now. But as we go into even, next year, let alone 20 years from now, is Tower of God something that you feel is going to be talked about at all?
This second category interests me. The very popular now, but not in the future. All 3 categories are interesting for distinct reasons, but I do think, these flavor of the month shows, you can usually sort of tell which ones they are, and which ones will probably stay in the discussion for a little while. And to me, Tower of God has always seemed to be in the latter category. But, I'm only on episode 3. I don't even know if the rest of the season is as good as the first 3 episodes are. So,
yeah, so
I can't really give a definitive answer.
Am caught up on Tower of God, and I enjoy it. I don't love it. And I question whether or not it has a lot to do with it maybe just wasn't right for an anime because, and I guess we'll test this more as time goes on, maybe webtoons just aren't right for anime adaptations, because one of the things that I've noticed is that watching Tower of God, it feels like it's asking me, and I don't know if you'll have anything to say on this because you're so early into the season, it feels like it's asking a lot of me in terms of whether or not I care about the characters. And I feel like in my viewing experience, where I've only known these guys for a couple months, I don't care about them as much as they think I should, at least from what I gather. But the difference is that as far as I know, I haven't double checked this, but as far as I was told, the first season of Tower of God covers 60 chapters of the webtoon, which means that if I was reading this week to week, I would have been with these guys for a year plus. So it feels like the level of attachment to the narrative and to the characters differs very much in these mediums. And I don't know if Tower of God is going to succeed as well as an anime as it seems to be doing as a webtoon. I like Tower of God a decent amount, but I don't feel like I quite understand the hype yet. It feels just okay.
Hoodie, that point is way too interesting for a 30-minute podcast. I definitely want to talk about, whether or how the slower pacing of a webtoons compared to a manga impacts the longevity of an anime adaptation. But we still have a whole nother Reddit thread, and we're at 26 minutes.
That is true, but I should remind you that we are actually not at 26 minutes because we had to stop multiple times. But I suppose the audience will realize
that's true,
that.
actually.
So we can go to the other Reddit thread. I feel like we've thoroughly... actually, I did want to talk, just real quick.
I want to talk about the third category.
Sorry, what was that?
I want to talk about the third category.
All right, well, before we get to the third category, the second category does have an answer that stands out to me, given by 25 November. It says, maybe My Hero Academia if the craze of superhero movie subsides. Because I don't, does My Hero Academia's success have anything to do with, not anything, but, do you really feel like it's impacted by the success of Marvel? Because I really feel like these aren't the same crowds. To some extent or another, they could be, but I feel like I see a lot of people who love Marvel, who we try to get involved in anime, like, oh, you love superheroes, go watch My Hero Academia, and I feel like that fails a lot, and I don't see it succeed too often. I do think My Hero Academia is appealing to a lot of new anime fans. It's a lot of anime fans' first anime, but I just don't know if that's the exact same crowd as the Marvel fans, and I don't know if that has anything to do with each other, or if it's just some level of coincidence. Obviously, there's probably something there, but I don't know if it's as much as this person thinks it is.
I will say that I think the normalization of superheroes definitely helped My Hero Academia connect with an American viewer base. I think it's like a moderate influence, but it's not that big. Like, My Hero Academia is about as popular as Naruto was, and that seems about right.
Yeah. All right, you wanted to move to the third category, or did you want to move to the second Reddit thread?
It was the third category, and I mean, I haven't seen a couple of these shows, 3 of them. 4 of them.
I've only seen Baccano, and I've seen a little bit of Log Horizon, but I have not seen all the other ones that this guy lists.
Yeah, these seem like shows that are popular in critical circles, but not really in the larger anime community. Especially given the examples of Log Horizon, Baccano, and Black Lagoon, which are shows that I know of through that community.
Yeah.
And I feel like that alone won't really determine whether or not a show survives. Like, that's probably why Legend of the Galactic Heroes and Monster survived. But I feel like a lot of shows just survive off of the memory of anime fans.
It feels like you almost have to be, like, you can't just be great to be remembered for your quality alone. You have to be the best to be remembered for just quality. Like, Legend of the Galactic Heroes,
Definitely.
Monster, these are arguably the best anime ever made. Baccano is a great anime. It's well celebrated in a lot of critical communities. It's not the greatest anime ever made. So I don't know if Baccano will be entirely relevant in the future, especially because I don't even really know. I feel like the tide on Baccano is almost slightly turning. I don't know. This is purely anecdotal, but I feel like a lot of analytical YouTubers that I follow, they talk a lot about, like, I revisited Baccano recently and I don't love it as much as I used to.
I haven't revisited it recently enough to know whether or not it holds up in my opinion, but Log Horizon does have the reputation of being the most popular isekai show, or the best isekai show.
Definitely not the most popular. I mean, we have Sword Art Online, so.
Yeah, definitely not the most popular. But, you know, that might sort of aid its longevity.
Definitely possible. I don't know where we are in, as someone who doesn't really follow isekais, I don't really know where we are in the saturation of that. It felt like maybe a couple years ago, every single anime ever was an isekai, and I don't really know if that's still the case, and I don't know if we're looking for a resurgence, or if we had our fun and we no longer want to do this concept ever again.
We'll see.
I will say there is something appealing about
isekai.
Like, when I first got into anime, I was specifically looking for them, and I feel like it's a genre that has no inherent problems that I, like, disagree with. It just seems to be that they suck. That's the only issue, is that they all are just pretty bad.
Yeah, maybe it's just like because a lot of them are light novel adaptations, or I don't know, maybe it just attracts, or the genre just sort of attracts bad writers. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Are there any shows that you think fit this third category?
Well,
not popular that exist now, but will still be relevant in the future?
I do have an answer that I think could fit, but it kind of goes into the next Reddit thread. So I want to read that, and then I could give you my answer to that question. So the next Reddit thread is by Reddit 1494203, who says, the term underrated is overused and has lost its meaning in this subreddit and in general. He says, every time I visit the subreddit, I always come across posts that say, please watch this underrated show. And it infuriates me to hell, because more often than not, that underrated show is actually a popular and highly rated show. I'm not saying there aren't any underrated shows. Of course there are. The point of what I'm saying is people often misuse and throw that label around mindlessly. If you call a popular and highly rated show underrated, we might as well call the rest of the actually forgotten shows non-existent. Examples based off of my anime list. Violet Evergarden, 2018, has an 8.62 rating, 65 in popularity, with over 740,000 members. Or maybe I'm misreading this a little bit, but you get the point. And then Vinland Saga, basically equally as popular. Maybe a little less popular, but equally as celebrated. So if you consider these two shows underrated, then all anime is underrated. And if all anime is underrated, then no anime is underrated. Thus, the word has lost its meaning. So I was reading this post, and it got me thinking, do I actually have an anime that I could look at the numbers and say, yeah, not enough people watch this show, or people think the show is bad and it's actually great? And I couldn't really come up with many answers, like, at all. I thought there was some that were like, I thought about Rakugo, which is one of my favorite anime ever. And it's really well celebrated. People genuinely seem to agree that it's a masterpiece. And it's not, like, hugely popular. It's not talked about a lot. But I don't think it's underrated. Like, I don't think no one's heard of it. So the only show that I can think of, to answer your question, that kind of fits, that I don't even really know if it does, is Paranoia Agent. And I don't know if this is, like, a failure of me as an anime fan, or proof that anime viewers actually have a pretty good grasp of, like, the anime that come out. I mean, we think of, all the people who are like, oh, you're only watching the, most popular shonen anime, like, My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, whatever. But I feel like a lot of shows actually do get talked about a fair amount. So the only thing that I could even remotely come up with was Paranoia Agent, and I don't even know if that really does count.
Paranoia Agent, I think, has the problem of being a bit old. It's like the fact that we know about it sort of implies popularity just because, it's an early 2000s show. I think going by this user's strict terminology, Paranoia Agent might not even be eligible. You might have to go for something that's, like, relevant that people aren't watching. Or not relevant, but, contemporary that people aren't watching.
Yeah, just for reference, Paranoia Agent is ranked 1047 on my anime list in terms of score, and then popularity, it's 472. So it is less popular than the ones he gave, but it is old. So I guess I don't know if it would fit this guy's strict definition. But I guess my larger point was just that, maybe I don't watch a lot of anime.
Well, don't tell the subscribers.
Yeah, I'll cut that out.
I watch a fair amount of anime, and I still couldn't really come up with... Well, the thing is, I'm not watching, like, current shows. I'm not really watching anything that's coming out. Most recent thing I watched that came out that I actually, like, fondly remember would have to be Made in Abyss. Mm-hmm. But that's obviously a highly popular show. If I could, like, choose an older candidate, I'd probably say One Outs is underrated.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. When we were playing this episode and I was reading through this thread, I was thinking of answers that I could give and then answers that you could give to see if we had any. And One Outs was the one that I probably wouldn't give just because I don't love One Outs. I think it's good. I actually never even finished it, but I know you love it, so I definitely think it probably fits this category. To go back to the question you originally asked before I segued into this thread, which is not very popular now, but still relevant in the future. Why I think Paranoia Agent fits this really, really well is because I think it's, from a directorial standpoint, is just such a fascinating anime that we don't really see as often as we should. And I think part of that, not part of it, I think a lot of that has to do with Satoshi Kon. And another huge thing behind this director that kind of fuels this narrative is that unfortunately he passed away a couple years ago, actually 10 years ago at this point. So I feel like there's a bit of a mythology around Satoshi Kon, which is that he doesn't have a lot of work done, and that kind of makes the works that he did do, the fact that they're all so good kind of makes all of them elevated to an even higher degree. So he also has I believe he did Paprika too, which is a very, very popular movie, or not popular, but a very celebrated movie. So I think a lot of Satoshi Kon's works, particularly for me, Paranoia Agent, aren't very popular, but, well, depending on who you ask, aren't very popular, but I think will continue to be relevant well into the future.
That is a good point in favor of Paranoia Agent, because Satoshi Kon is one of the big names in Japanese animation that even normies like us sort of recognize. So I definitely think his association with the show and its quality, its watchability, I think those aspects will hold up well and definitely make it a good candidate for surviving the test of time.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of Kato's Anime Cafe. I want to give a quick shout out again to this week's sponsors. Thank you, Writer Junkie and the Tax Defense Group for sponsoring the Anime Cafe. And thank you to everyone listening. You can catch us uploading every Monday to UCast Studios' YouTube channel or your favorite podcast apps. I've been your host, Hoodie Song, with my partner, Zero. Until next time.
さよなら